I'm here for one reason only, to make you money.
If money talks,
You do like making money, correct?
They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Ha, money talks.
welcome to Las Vegas.
CNBC Prime, September 10th.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to On the Money. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Coming to you today from outside the New York Stock Exchange. A massive glitch brings trading to a halt for hours at the NASDAQ. What went wrong and what does it mean to your money? A rare interview with the CEO of the world's largest retailer and the company that employs more people than anybody else. We'll talk jobs, the economy, and the consumer with Walmart CEO Mike Duke. And why lobstermen are feeling the pinch this year, but you're still paying full price for that tasty crustacean. We'll crack open the case on lobster. On the Money begins right now.
This is America's #1 financial news program, On the Money. Now, Maria Bartiromo.
Here's a look at what's making news as we head into a new week on the money. An abrupt halt to trading at the NASDAQ on Thursday. The entire exchange shut down for about 3 hours due to an unidentified software glitch. There's no word yet on exactly what caused the problem, but securities could not be priced at all. And there was no response from NASDAQ officials before and during the halt on the cause of the problem. The next day, NASDAQ OMX CEO Bob Greifeld defended NASDAQ's handling of the outage.
We took the proper amount of time, right, to make sure that the testing was done, that the communication yesterday was so strong, and we got that communication done, and we came back successfully. So it's not our job, nor will it be, for us to go on the press, to the press, to public, while we're focused on the issue.
Now, in spite of that, the NASDAQ composite was up more than 1% on Thursday. The Dow had a good day as well, breaking its longest losing streak of the year. That was 6 days of losses. The markets continued to climb on Friday. The Federal Reserve's Open Market Committee released the minutes from its July meeting, and investors were hoping for some clarity on when the Fed would begin to slow down the bond buying program. They were mostly disappointed, as a split Fed provided few clues about just when that would happen. Some big names in retail reporting earnings this week. Home Depot beat earnings expectations and raised its forecast, as did rival Lowe's. Staples fell short, as did Sears and JCPenney. Meanwhile, big story Friday, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer announced that he is stepping down. Ballmer says he will retire as CEO of Microsoft within 12 months, but will continue on the job until a new leader for the company is found. Microsoft shares jumped on the news. A frozen market, some Fed speak, and questions about tapering. What does it all mean to your money? Joining me right now to talk about it, Dan Greenhouse is Chief Global Strategist with BTIG, and Andy Cross, Chief Investment Officer at the Motley Fool. Gentlemen, good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Dan, let me kick this off with you. The flash freeze, the NASDAQ halts trading for 3 hours because of a technical glitch. What kind of an impact do you see this having on the consumer, on the retail investor?
Yeah, so I think the larger issue here that's getting lost in the communication debate and the technical glitches is this idea that at the end of the day, what happens in the stock market, what happens in the capital markets is the essence of democracy, of capitalism. This is where companies go to tap investors, to grow, to hire, to invest. And obviously you're doing damage in terms of sentiment, but at the same time, if you lose faith in the stock market, you are in essence losing faith in capitalism.
Yeah, and that's why the retail investor has stepped away. Isn't that right?
Well, I think there is a little bit to that. I mean, we've seen a lot of these issues, whether it's the Facebook IPO, the flash crash recently, kind of bubble up on top of the financial crisis. So I think some individual investors tend to say, hey, what's going on with all the big money going on in New York?
Listen, the whole idea that they shut down the market and they stopped trading across all exchanges to not impair the retail investor.
It happens.
It happens. But at the same time, I guess the main criticism, and other commentators have pointed this out, is can you really go 3 hours without saying anything?
All right, let's take a look at the markets. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve, of course, releasing those minutes from the last Fed meeting. Everybody was looking forward to it for any clarity on when the Fed would start the tapering, start slowing down the bond buying program. And they really didn't get any.
Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
Well, I don't think it didn't surprise me so much. I mean, I think there's a lot of uncertainty both in the world and in the economy as well, and we're seeing that on the FOMC too, and we saw that in the minutes. I did say that report seemed to be a little bit more dour than I thought coming into it. So I know there's been some talk about some side of the boards wanting to go with a September action with pulling back on some of the bond purchases, and some saying, no, we have to wait to see what happens. And there are mixed numbers just this week. When you look at some of the housing data, just mixed numbers on the new home sales and existing home sales. Very evident what's going on in the market.
Yeah, but frankly, I mean, do you really think we could see tapering happening in September? The next two-day meeting is September 17th.
The most important point to make is that the Fed has actually moved private sector sentiment in that direction. The Fed does a sort of an insider survey, so to speak, and right now, the insiders that are surveyed think that the Fed is going to reduce purchases by $15 billion in September. So the private market is already there.
All right, the Dow had its longest losing streak this week, 6 days of declines. Is this just a late summer swoon? Do you think this is the beginning of a bigger correction to come? What do you think is happening? Or should we not care because it's the end of August?
Well, listen, right now, all the talk is whether or not the stock market and the economy can handle higher interest rates. And my favorite talking point is 13 months ago, the yield on the 10-year was about 1.3, 1.4%. Today, it's about 2.8, 2.9%. So it's effectively doubled over the last 13 months. The stock market is up somewhere between 22 and 23% over that same time frame. So I think we've had a terrific run here. Yields have repriced partially as a result of the Federal Reserve. And the question right now, of course, as Maria asked, is this part of a larger thing? The most important point here is that August and September are never really a particularly strong period of time for the stock market. And after the run that we've had, some period of digestion is perfectly normal and should be expected.
So what should a retail investor do right now? What's the plan?
I still like retail investor to be, an individual investor to be long into this market. I think, ultimately, the negotiations with the Fed works out. We do have some short-term uncertainty with all the things that you mentioned, Maria, with the sequestration and the new Fed governor coming in.
So
and the
buy
debt
individual
ceiling.
stocks, or how do you do it?
I do like individual stocks. There's some really good. I still think we have some bargains. The S&P 500 as a whole isn't horribly expensive still, especially after a little pullback. And I think looking out, especially the U.S. markets and companies in the U.S. that are operating in the U.S. look really well positioned to be able to continue to grow.
What about you, Dan? What's the plan?
The first caveat always, of course, is everybody's investment horizon and schedule is different.
Yeah.
But that said, listen, to the point, what you want to look at is companies that are going to perform over a period of time, and whether the government has issues in September or not ultimately shouldn't change the path of a given company's course of earnings and so on. So the first thing you really have to do is look through the near-term turbulence. Not that you should ignore it, but look through it and identify companies that you like that are ultimately going to do well no matter the environment. Quickly, we've had a terrible economic environment for several years. Any number of stocks are up 100, 200, 300, 400%. So the weak economic environment has not stopped a lot of companies from doing quite well.
That's so true.
All right. We'll leave it there. Dan, good to have you on the program. Andy, thank you so much. Good to have you both. Dan Greenhouse, Andy Cross joining me. Up next on The Money, walking in Walmart shoes, the CEO of the nation's largest retailer will join me. Also the nation's largest employer. We'll talk hiring and selling to the nation's middle class. And later, prices for lobster off the coast of Maine are at new depths. We are looking at the impact on one of summer's top flavors, and we'll get a taste of one small business bringing New England to the rest of the country. As we take a break, take a look at how the stock market ended the week. Welcome back. Super retailer Walmart, known for the rollback, but so far this year, those everyday low prices have not been enough to sustain growth in the U.S. or international stores. Why has this $466 billion company struggled when the economy seems to be improving at least a bit? What's its strategy for raising profits as we head into the ultra-competitive back-to-school and then holiday seasons? I sat down with Walmart CEO Mike Duke, who shared with me what's happened to the middle-class consumer.
The customer clearly is under a lot of pressure. I think the economic pressure from the payroll tax, I think the concern about fuel prices, about jobs, employment, all of this puts a little bit of a cloud on the consumer.
What are you expecting from back to school and from the holidays?
So I do think there'll continue to be pressure. I think the overall consumer spending in the United States and frankly around the world will be under pressure through the back to school and through the holiday season. But I think where customers can see value and quality and their needs be met, then those retailers will do really well.
What about competition? I mean, in an environment where you are seeing people stressed and stretched, are you seeing the dollar stores take market share at this point?
Wherever I'm at across the United States, I drop in and visit competitors. So I have great respect for all competitors. We can see that we continue to gain market share and feel good about that.
This company has always been about operating for less, selling for less, because of different labor laws, because of different wages. Are you having a tougher time selling for less international?
Actually, we have had great success in the markets that we've been in for a number of years, where we have implemented our everyday low price practice is where we have great success. So, for example, Mexico, Canada, the UK, our ASDA business, in those emerging markets, the customers still want EDLP.
The minimum wage, a lot of people expecting it to go up again. It seems like it could be two-sided. If the minimum wage goes up, it helps your customers. Maybe they'll spend more, but it forces you to pay more. What's the impact to Walmart?
The story of Walmart with our people, it's not the pay to start, it's the opportunity. As you probably know, I think less than 1% of our associates make the minimum wage. The vast majority of our associates are paid more than that.
All right, let me turn our attention to Mexico. Walmart, of course, reported higher than expected expenses related to the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in the international division. This, of course, the bribery charges in Mexico. $73 million in the first quarter, more than expected. $82 million in the second quarter, on top of the $155 million to implement the compliance program. A lot of expectations, more to come in the third quarter. What should investors expect? Should they expect these kinds of outflows for several quarters to come?
Well, first, the investigation itself and the timing, I really can't comment on because it's an investigation underway. What I can say, and a portion of this investment is in the area of compliance, to do the right thing in every market that we operate in. So we have invested in people and processes and systems to ensure that every market that we operate in, that we do it the right way.
Are heads going to roll? Is anybody going to get fired over this?
We will take the appropriate action, but it would be premature to discuss anything about the future.
Increasingly, companies shifting full-time workers to become part-time workers because of the expense of Obamacare. You initially backed Obamacare, but then last year in December, you said you too would no longer insure part-time workers. How much of a burden is the rising cost of health care? Explain this to us.
And I'll clarify, back a number of years ago, we actually said before there was the Affordable Care Act that the current system of health care was not sustainable, and we still believe that. But we've been working on this now for a number of years, so the Affordable Care Act really doesn't have the significant impact because we already meet the test for affordability, for quality of what the Act requires.
Mike, one of the issues that came up with some of the investors that I was talking to when I was preparing for this interview is your succession. The company has identified two people that perhaps could be your successor, Bill Simon, who runs the U.S., Doug, who runs international, McMillan. Have you discussed the issue of succession with your board?
I think every responsible public board at every board meeting should be discussing succession. And of course, Walmart has a very mature board, our chairman, Rob Walton, and other members. So succession is an ongoing. I think when I first joined the board of directors, it was discussed then, and it's discussed at every board meeting continually.
Will you announce your retirement this year?
You can tell I love what I'm doing, so that's not the topic of today's discussion. I'm highly energized.
My thanks to Mike Duke of Walmart. Up next on The Money, lobster is clawing its way to the top of the culinary world, while the fresh stuff is priced at record lows. Economics of lobster is the main thing when we come back. And find us on Facebook/Maria Bartiromo. Welcome back. Hey, did you know lobster is on a roll, both at the market and as a business trend, as wholesale prices in Maine, the nation's largest lobster harvesting state, plunged to as low as $2 a pound. Does that leave consumers paying luxury prices to get pinched? Dana Cowan is editor-in-chief of Food and Wine, and she's here to help consider the lobster. Dana, it's good to have you back on the program.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have so much stuff to go through. Tell us what's first behind the fact that lobster prices have really come down quite a bit, and the impact that has had on the consumer industry. This guy wants to travel, okay? He just scared me.
He's come all the way from Maine and wants to go back home,
yeah,
I think.
He's on the move. So how come lobster prices have gone down so much?
Lobster prices have gone down because there is a glut. There's a lot of lobster, but that actually is a good thing. It means that the traps have been maintained sustainably.
So even though lobster prices have come down because there's a glut of lobsters, it's not being passed on to the consumer. It's still very expensive to order a lobster dish. What's the infrastructure that makes menu prices different?
Well, the infrastructure would be, did you buy the lobster whole, right? Because then you had the way that it got to you. It took a long trip, just like this. These
This
little
guy's on the
Latin
move
guys.
too. They're all on the move. They know something's happening here. They don't like having their claws tied up. Oh my God. All right, I want to bring in Jim Selakis and Sabin Lomack, co-founders of Cousins Maine Lobster. Your business is bringing fresh lobster from your home state to your 2 food trucks in Los Angeles. Guys, good to have you on the program.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much. So how does it work in light of this increased lobster harvest happening in Maine that Dana's talking about?
You know what, it's a real testament to the state of Maine and the industry, the regulations that they have in place that has created this sustainable product, which now, you know, they're certainly having more landings, but there's a lot that goes on between the live lobster that comes out of the ocean in Maine and then that ends up in the lobster roll. You know, it comes off the docks, it goes to the processing plants, and then it's cooked, picked, processed, and packaged.
Tell me a bit about your business. You were featured on the show Shark Tank.
Yep.
I love that, which gave you both capital and customers. You're looking at more growth.
Yeah, right now, I mean, we started about 15 months ago with 1 truck in Los Angeles. We're currently building our 3rd truck. We have a little brick and mortar in Pasadena. We ship online. We've shipped to every state. Everything comes from Maine. Anything from fresh lobster meat, live lobster, lobster pot pies, lobster mac and cheese.
Not beer, yeah, we don't do beer.
Yeah, we're trying to ship beer, but we haven't gotten into that business
Well,
yet.
this is just Dana's accompaniment, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like, you know, beer is perfect with lobster. Like, why overthink it? And make it really simple for yourself and get a beer that has a lobster on its label.
This is
Gary's got
That's always a
name
good sign.
So how is the falling price of lobster impacting your business? I mean, you know, Dana's talking about the fact that there's this glut of lobsters and yet it's not being passed on.
Yeah, and just as she was saying earlier, it is really that infrastructure that exists between landing the live lobsters and getting it to the fresh meat. We send fresh meat to Los Angeles.
It is a testament to the sustainability in Maine that the fishermen, the lobstermen go through, and that 80% of their landings they throw back. If it is a pregnant female, if it's a small adolescent or a very large male, they're going to throw those back so that they keep producing more and more lobsters so we have more amazing Maine lobster.
Yeah, and are you seeing lobster be as popular as it always has been? Are you seeing the demand there?
In LA?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean,
Really?
literally, it's just been so nice to bring our native, you know, Maine lobster to LA. People love it. Their feedback's phenomenal. And we sell it for a lot less than they do out here in New York.
Yeah. You noticed that, did you?
Yeah.
I mean, there are lobster roll wars. I'm sure you know. Then there's, you know, people are really passionate. Is the roll buttered? What happens to the lobster? Is it tossed in butter? Is it tossed in mayo?
Ooh. What are these
Great
babies? Tell us
question,
about these.
All right, let's do it. So
Let's
these are
do it.
our traditional 2 rolls. We have the traditional Maine roll in the front, fresh claw, knuckle, tail meat, and we have a little mayonnaise, New England style roll, lightly toasted. My favorite, Jimmy and I argue over this. This is my favorite. We call it a Connecticut roll. Same type of meat, fresh claw, knuckle, tail meat, all from Maine. We saute in a little butter, a little lemon. So it's kind of like when you're ripping that lobster and you're eating it nice and warm. The butter's all over your face.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
need
staining
the
your
bib for
shirts.
that,
No
right?
bibs. We're just dirtying up. That's my favorite. This is our most popular item.
It looks excellent.
It's
So
amazing.
should we squeeze some lemon on that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's-
Everyone has to grab a lemon though.
Lemon,
Team
lemon
effort.
that
Team
baby
effort.
up.
Team
Lemon
effort.
that baby up.
All right, hold on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, woo!
Guys waiting for
I
me.
kind of want to.
Oh yeah.
Do we get to drink the beers?
Yeah.
This was great, you guys. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
It's a lot of
Dana Cohen and Cousins Maine Lobster, Jim and Sabin. We'll see you soon.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thanks,
Happy
guys.
summer to you. Up next, take a look at the news this upcoming week that will have an impact on your money. And then golfer Phil Mickelson will join me, the British Open winner, on the game and just how much his winnings are taxed. Back in a moment. For more on our show and our guests, check out the website, otm.cnbc.com. And I hope you'll follow me on Twitter and on Google+. Just look for @Maria Bartiromo. First, though, here's a look at the stories coming up in the week ahead that may move the markets and impact your money this upcoming week. On Monday, we will see how U.S. manufacturing is doing with the release of durable goods orders for the month of July. On Tuesday, the S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index will be out. That also for the month of June, that is due out. Wednesday is the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. On Thursday, the second estimate for the second quarter GDP is due, typically a market mover. And then on Friday, billionaire investor Warren Buffett celebrates his 83rd birthday. Happy birthday to Warren. Golfer Phil Mickelson, meanwhile, recently won the British Open, cementing his financial success in golf. I spoke to him from the site of the Barclays PGA Tournament about an interesting side effect to being among the world's greatest golfers, the 60% tax bill on his winnings.
It's tough to talk about because nobody wants to be insensitive. Nobody wants to be insensitive. A tough time where a lot of people are having a hard time with work. And I mean, I had a chance to spend time with CEOs, a lot of them who are quality individuals having a hard time hiring right now because of so much uncertainty going on in the financial world, with whether it's taxes, whether it's the healthcare, whether it's all the obligations that are placed on the employer. So it's not making me want to go out and work harder.
Would you actually leave the country?
Oh, no. I love this place. A lot of people thought I grew up in a country club. I didn't. I grew up in a family that was lower middle class, and we did fine. But I wanted to play golf, and I didn't have the opportunity. I didn't have a club to go practice at. So you know what I did? I went down to the local municipal course. I got a job picking up range balls 3 nights a week. I picked up trash in the parking lot. I picked up the pins. And for that, I was able to play and practice. If I had a strong enough will and desire to achieve it, I was able to fulfill my dreams of playing the PGA Tour. I don't know what other country allows those great opportunities.
My thanks to Phil Mickelson. That's the show for today. Thanks so much for joining me. My guest next week, Labor Secretary Tom Perez, as we celebrate Labor Day. Each week, keep it right here where we are on the money. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you again next weekend.